on the debt stock, which he said at the time stood at 122 billion from 9.5 billion in 2009. He also talked about the current GDP growth rate and also how we almost missed the IMF target under former President Mahama. Has anything changed since for the economy?
So, good evening to Koku, good evening to your viewers and to yourself as well. A lot has changed in the Ghanaian economy, and on Thursday, President Akufo-Addo will give the latest update on where we are on the macro side, and then also on the micro side, some specifics of what we've been able to achieve so far. Very quickly, yes, last year he talked about the debt stock, but not just the stock, what it means in its sustainability measure, which for all intents and purposes is usually the best way you look at it. That's a debt to GDP ratio, which at the time was about 74%. And he committed in that year that we were going to bring down the debt to GDP ratio by doing two things: trying to grow the GDP rapidly, and also trying to slow down the rate at which we were accumulating debt. Remember that last year, or in the last 8 years, we were accumulating debt at a rate of about 36% every year. And one of the commitments of this new administration has been to reduce that. So on Thursday, he will tell us how well we have done in that area. I think as for the GDP figures, we've seen up to...
You are so involved in the economy because you understand economics very well. Are we doing well?
Well,
even before the president gives us these new figures.
We are. The latest GDP figures, as we had them as at Q3, showed us where we were in terms of growth. Admittedly, a significant part of that has come from oil. But you also notice that the non-oil GDP is also picking up. And also, if you look at the medium-term growth horizon, you notice that the non-oil GDP, as we invest more money into agriculture and as industry regains its verve. Industry was doing, I think, even less than 1% last year. You notice that in the last quarter figures we had, we've done somewhere about 17% growth. So there is a gradual improvement in the Ghanaian economy, particularly on the macro side. But we cannot, even in government, deceive ourselves that the fact that the macro numbers are looking good means that everybody in the value chain is happy. There are a number of interventions we have to pay attention to. And the president will speak to what he's going to do in this second year to deal with some of those.
Okay. Koku, your initial comments on
well, Nana, but I would say that for somebody who wrote 4 State of the Nation addresses, 2009, 10, 11, 12, I wrote those addresses for President Mills. May his soul rest in peace, and because I was his speechwriter. For me, the president in his form and substance of his speech last year, I think that he did well in terms of, it was his maiden speech. He had no option but to break ice. And so in the opening remarks, he had to recall his period while in Parliament. He had to identify a few faces. There had to be some little pun before he went into the real substance. So I think that in the form, it was okay. In terms of the delivery, it wasn't bad. 1 year on, we are now going to do the mathematics and see whether, when he said in paragraph 14 of last year's speech that he was in a hurry, we will see the extent to which he has been in a hurry.
Do you think he's been in a hurry? Does it show?
Well, he's been in a hurry in certain directions.
Okay, such as?
As to whether being in a hurry has resulted in positives for us, it's a different thing altogether. He's been in a hurry in terms of wanting to touch lots of his manifesto promises. In that regard, he's been in a hurry. But whether the touch-and-go attitude has resulted in substantial, real gains for us, it's a different matter for debate.
I just want to run by you some of the key targets he has been able to roll out. There's the free SHS policy, which is, in session. It is working. I mean, there are, of course, a few problems here and there. He's restored both teacher and nurse training allowances and ensured the review of electricity tariffs.
Has he really ensured the review of electricity tariffs, or he has just promised a review of electricity tariffs?
He's promised a review.
Exactly, he's promised a review.
Okay, but for the other 3, would you call them a touch and go?
Touch and go in the sense that the free SHS, yes, we all saw what happened. And it's not like we've not had any form of free education before in this country.
Yeah, I knew you would go there, but for what he has done in this spirit...
We've had various shapes and forms of free education.
Right.
From what Kwame Nkrumah started and various forms. Those of us who did sit form, automatically when we went to sit form, we benefited from government bursary. Right. That was some form of free. What he has done is to attempt a blanket roll out of something. But then again, if you go back to their manifesto, chapter 9, page 104 of their manifesto, the subject, I mean, the chapter on education, what they really told us in that education was that, in that manifesto was that education was going to be free up to the senior high school level, from kindergarten up to the senior high school level. So, fine, they've not been able to do it from a basic school. They say at the SHS level, even that one they cut out from 2 and from 3. They said they are doing it from 1. So that's why I'm saying that he has touched the things in a hurry. As to whether he has been able to really step on the things and stay on solid ground, it's a different matter altogether, because, yes, somebody will say why. He has to start from somewhere. Indeed, he has to start from somewhere. But that's why we're also saying that in starting from somewhere, there could have been a bit of a much more piecemeal approach to it. But hey...
But if he had done that, wouldn't you have criticized him for waiting for so long to roll it out?
But if he's going to look at opposition and say I'm in a hurry and I'm going to be running and end up skating...
He's got only 4 years.
He's got only 4 years, but it doesn't mean that hit your head against every wall.
Okay.
Otherwise, you get bruised badly.
All right.
So, yes, in opposition, you say certain things. You are in government. The reality is facing you. Hey, you eat humble pie, you move on. Nobody's going to cut off your head. Right. Nobody's going to take the mandate away from you, at least not through any backdoor.
But before I go to Kojo, using the same approach with the one district, one factory, the one village, one dam, and the other promises, your colleagues have said that he made promises. For instance, they say that he mentioned that by the end of 2017, we're going to have 51 factories running. That did not materialize, and he's been taken to the cleaners.
Why not? That's what I'm saying. I mean, I drove past Ekumfi towards the tail end of last year. I was driving to Ejumako, the University College of Education, for a program, and I actually drove past that portion of land where the president cut the sword for that pineapple factory to have been up and running by now. Okay. Nothing happening there. So I'm saying that it's enough to win an election on populist rhetoric. But governance is certainly not an alligator race. It's much more of the work of a tortoise, and you have to walk gingerly. And I think that the president ought to do a bit more of ginger walking than the alligator run.
He says it's been touch and go.
No. So first, I don't think it's accurate to say that the current administration won power based on populist rhetoric. We won power based on what we believed were pragmatic deliverables, which we promised the people of Ghana, like free SHS, like restoring these allowances, like investing in the real sector of the economy to bring growth back onto the path that we were looking for. So take free SHS, for example. Yes, we promised that our objective within this 4-year mandate is to redefine basic education so that it goes to senior high school from 3, right from kindergarten, and to make it free. Now, within this 4-year period, you have the option, like Koku mentioned, of choosing what we believe is the old structure, where you make your promises, you come and you say, reality has hit me, so I can't do it. But we believe that it contributes to a certain weakening of people's confidence in the political class. And so the president was very clear from the beginning that no matter what you do in this first year, I want to see free SHS being rolled out. And the position that, the economic management team, after crunching the numbers, came to us that we'll start with Form 1. Next year, we'll bring on another stream. By year 3, everybody will be on. So that by the time we are hitting our 4-year mandate, we would be confident in saying that we have delivered free senior high school. Free senior high school has put...
You talked about not weakening the confidence people have in
the political class, yes. Because it is important to fulfill your promises and not to go to the old narrative that there's no money, the reality is more difficult than I thought.
But for those who say that their impression or their understanding was that the moment you start rolling out free SHS, it was going to be across the board and not beginning with first-year students. What do you say to them?
We say to them that the promise we made to the people of Ghana is that within this 4-year mandate, we will redefine basic education, bring it up to senior high school level, and make it free. And we are on the path to achieving that. This year alone, 90,000 Ghanaian children who would have otherwise using the old structure, not have had an opportunity to go to senior high school, now have an opportunity to go. Now, if you extrapolate that even by 3 years, when it is fully, rolled out, I mean, that's what, 270,000 who would have an opportunity to do this. So we would not say that in year one, it has been rolled out to the full 3 years, but we are of the view that by the time our 4-year mandate is done, we would have touched that. Allowances have been paid. Planting for food and jobs, for example, rolled out
I'll come to that in a bit. But let's stay on the free SHS because, I mean, you are giving us very large numbers of students who are going to the senior high schools. How about logistics? Because we've had complaints from heads of schools saying that their boarding rooms, the dormitories are congested.
That's true.
Classrooms are congested.
That's
How
true.
are you dealing with that alongside these large numbers?
So first, it is important to acknowledge that that is true. When people raise that, we don't have to dismiss it and pretend that anybody who says something about the logistics challenges is against government.
This is why I like this gentleman.
No, but that is the truth. You have to acknowledge it.
That's it.
That is the truth. But you see, it is a problem that, may I say, because we were artificially keeping people out of school, even though the problem of a lack of infrastructure existed, we were not seeing it. Now that the cost barrier has been taken away, we are seeing the problem. So what we quickly have to do is to invest in the infrastructure. And already, the first audit of what the infrastructure gap is has taken place. We now have a clear idea. I suspect probably the President will mention some numbers on Thursday about it. We now have a clear idea what the infrastructure gap is and what it takes to fund that and how to roll that out over a period. A lot of money has been made available to the GET Fund this year to close that gap. The free SHS funding itself has been moved to the Scholarship Secretariat so that we can free up part of the resources at the Education Ministry to also try and close that gap. So between education and GET Fund, we're trying to make resourcing available to close that gap. Yes, it is not tidy currently, but like the Deputy Education Minister said on the floor of Parliament during the 2018 budget debate, we have to make a choice as a country. Would we rather have these children sitting at home waiting to finish the infrastructure, by which time a lot of them would have lost the opportunity, the productive years to go to school? Or would we rather have them go to school today, even if the conditions are not perfect, and get an education? Mind you,
it's being put in a pickle.
It is a difficult choice, but it's a choice that government has made. Mind you, a lot of our people today, I don't know where Koku went to school, but a lot of our people today...
I think he went to Tomato, yeah.
Oh, you did? You went to a very good school. But, a lot of our big men today, doctors, professors all over the place, at the time of their education, did not necessarily have the most perfect of conditions. So we are clear in our mind that even when conditions are difficult, once you are getting an education, it is better than you staying at home. But that does not mean that we don't have to close the gap. And I think it's something that we have to take seriously. Everybody has to give us pressure so that we can quickly close that gap.
Okay, we'll come to the planting for food and jobs in a bit. But you wanted to pass a comment on his
the issue of, I like his candor. And I think he and I are on that same wavelength when it comes to being candid about some of these things. So yes, it is true. The infrastructure gap, exists. That is why when we came in 2008, we decided that, look, pari passu, while we looked at numbers, increased enrollment numbers, let's also add infrastructure. So from the basic schools, elimination of the schools under trees, eliminating the shift system in Greater Accra, giving the 12-unit classroom blocks, the girls' dormitories, the boys' dormitories, across the length and breadth of this country. So you don't put the children in a tight corner and then say now you are looking for infrastructure. Because when President Kufuor did his change of nomenclature for the senior SHS, precisely the same thing he did. It was just a change of name. All the former documents remain the same, valid. And so that's why when we came, while we were reversing, we also had to add heavy infrastructure expansion. And so, yes, you can say, well, the president has taken a decision that, look, let me start this year. Fine. But we wait to see. Nobody said it must fail, because that's the last thing we will want for our children to be out of school. No. But the truth of the matter is that you're not going to have an egalitarian system, even in the Nordic countries, where they have the best forms of social interventions. They began from somewhere, and they didn't begin in such a hurry. So my problem or my challenge or the NDC's challenge is the speed with which the president is going. It's good to be in a hurry, but cautiously be in a hurry.
Okay. Now, Kojo, you introduced the planting for food and jobs.
Yeah, and
your minister says that you've created 745,000.
Wonderful.
And I think
I want to be I want to have a job in that sector.
I think last week he held a press conference trying to give a breakdown of, you know, the various categories of people who were engaged to do various things. First of all, they were targeting 200,000 farmers. To reach those 200,000 farmers, they needed to provide a number of logistics. There were extension officers who for many years had not been engaged, but who for the first time we had to engage. Apart from the extension officers, you have places where you need to extend agric mechanization services. So you have what they call the machine operators who are also engaged. And then you have the people who are dealing with fertilizer and seed distribution, and they gave a full breakdown. I think that what we have to do is to perhaps, and for those who doubt that number, perhaps take the minister on and pick a particular district and ask for the data in that district. That, okay, so in this district, we're saying, or the data says 1,000 farmers, 200 agric extension officers, 20 machine operators, 60 fertilizer people, 70 seed people, and go through the list and attempt to validate. I think that until we do that, it is not fair just to say, maybe because I wasn't engaged or because I have not seen them, it's not true. Because, for example, today I came with the Auditor General's report. I recall when the President mentioned it in the press encounter. And the very first debate that I had with my very good friend, Kesla Toforson, the argument from our friends on the minority was that to the extent that the President hadn't mentioned the names of the contractors, it could not be true. If it's true, mention their names. But you see, until you go in to validate, you can't wish it all away.
I wish I had a soundbite. I don't know if Ivan Sinkum is there. I would have played it back to you because it's from Aveime, where, you know, he was talking to people about the planting for food and jobs, and only one person said he had benefited.
No, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying go to the district agric office, because it's possible for you to go stand there and say how many people have benefited. 200,000 people out of Ghana's population of about 26, 27 million is a drop in the ocean. Right. So if you go and do a sampling in Aveime, you may find one person out of a pool of 15. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying go to the district agric office, pick the list of people in that district, and attempt to validate that number and see whether or not you find
I'm sure the media houses will do that. But since there are so many doubts over that figure, why hasn't the Ministry of Information provided these statistics?
The Minister for Agric himself held a press conference outlining his numbers.
That was also doubted.
So then would you believe the Ministry of Information?
Well, because you're going to give us documents to read. You're going to provide us with documents.
So at this stage now, he has put out the numbers. Those numbers break down district by district. Right. I think it's a very simple exercise. Let's ask for one district and let's attempt to validate.
You know, I listened to the
minister.
No, well, the minister, of course. I mean, I'm not too sure what was happening to him. That question was put to the president. And I respect the president for ducking. He ducked the question and then headed it on to the minister. Say, you take it. And that's when he put out the first figure of 800 and something thousand. Then he reduced to 740,000. Well, where are the jobs? He comes back, he wants to do a further, opening up of the thing. And then he's telling us that, well, he is looking at the amount of fertilizer and farming input that went into the farms this year. For goodness sake. So if I have the same hectare of land and I get more farming input, does that mean I've employed more hands? So it's ridiculously funny that he's saying that just because he thinks that he has supplied more farming inputs by way of fertilizer this year or last year, and so it has resulted in jobs. Then I heard the General Secretary or Secretary General of the General Agricultural Workers Union, Gau. He was very emphatic that, look, they don't believe what the man is saying, the minister is saying, and they want him to come out with more details. Because first of all, Gau was not involved in this whole planting for job, whatever. You have just mentioned the case of Aveime, where only one person. I have listened to several bulletins, especially in the northern parts of the country. Farmers have spoken about low yields last year. So even if you sent the farming inputs, they're talking about low yields last year. We're talking about land tenure system, where there was a particular story in the Upper West region, where the lady was saying that, look, they are not even allowed to own farmlands as female. So how do they get involved in this whole farming, planting for jobs and something, whatever it is? So obviously, the minister knows that you and I are not going to walk into every farm in the country. We're not going to go into every thicket. So if he hides the jobs, in the forest, nobody will find the jobs. And that's what he's doing. He's hiding the jobs in the forest.
But you know,
he can't produce the jobs for us to see.
A very quick comment. I recall when former President Mahama, I think in his last State of the Nation address, did what he called the evidence-based, approach. And the media went out there in an attempt to validate. I'm saying it's not very difficult. The numbers are broken down by district. Ask for one district data and go out there and seek to validate and come back and tell us whether or not.
You and I know you have a very difficult task as an information minister. I mean, I've been there before as head of communication and the presidency. Man, today I'm not in the coat. You are in the coat.
And where is the coat about?
Exactly. You see, because sometimes these ministers put you on the spot. Because honestly, Nana, if you're asking the information minister to go and bring the figures, I will say no. Let the agric minister, in fact, what the information minister should be doing, he should create a platform for the Meet the Press series. And let that agric minister come and
no, but he's
convince.
Done that. He's done that already.
That's what she's saying, that but he didn't convince anybody. But you must have created a platform, but he still didn't convince anybody.
No, but you see, Koku, this is not a matter that mere words will convince. You need to go and validate the list.
Exactly.
So simply put, pick one district, go out there and attempt to validate.
Well, the ball is still rolling. I'm sure we'll check.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, you're watching State of Affairs brought to you by Verna Natural Mineral Water. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be looking at lawlessness and also some more questions for Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. We'll be right back.
Autistic children dreams come true during Verna Mineral Water rebranding launch.
Most of the times people ignore such kids and they tag them as evil kids or they are cursed and all that, but that's not true.
Putting a smile on every child's face, regardless of their condition, is a major responsibility of our society, and I am pleased to be a part of this today.
In this life, the best thing you can do is to make someone else happy, or basically make people around you happy.
Drinking and buying Verna mineral water, you help many people out there, like our beautiful sisters over here, and all the many people that Verna mineral water helps.
Here we go. Purchase a bottle of the all-new, sleek and stylish Verna Natural Mineral Water today and support a worthy cause. Verna Mineral Water, changing people's lives.
Madam, I want Prosecure Herbal Tea. What is this? I said I want Prosecure Herbal Tea, not capsule.
This also good for urinary problem. Okay, please don't go. I have some. Supplement to improve urine flow.
Do not let anyone deceive you. There's nothing like Prosecure capsule. It is Prosecure Herbal Tea. Just boil it and drink it. That's all.
Prostacure from Medimosis Prostate Center is a well-formulated food supplement acclaimed worldwide to improve urine flow. Now available at all pharmacies, filling station shops and shopping centers nationwide. Contact the Tema, Accra and Kumasi branches with the numbers on your screen. Visit our new ultra-modern diagnostic center at Twazako Valley opposite the Westgate.
Prostacure food supplement improves urine flow in men.
Rush hour traffic. Or a great spot to enjoy the view. A hot day. Or a chance to get closer. The regular motions of work. Or a moment for ingenuity and unexpected creativity. Because when you look, there's joy to be found anywhere. And joy will find you.
Okay. Yeah, welcome back to the show. State of Affairs brought to you by Verna Natural Mineral Water. And as you know, water is life. Each day, an average adult naturally loses 2.5 to 3 liters of water. In order to help replenish your body, you need to drink quality hydrating fluids. When considering such fluids, choose Verna Natural Mineral Water, naturally made to quench your thirst. Verna Natural Mineral Water, healthy drinking, healthy living, and Verna is actually changing lives. I'm here tonight with Deputy Information Minister Kojo, in fact, Honorable Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah.
MP for Ofuasi.
Both of you should come visit us.
We will.
We should.
Yes, and also, of course, you know, Koku Nyidoho. Koku, I'm getting messages about the last time you were on the show. About you and President Mohammed, if you loved him. Somebody actually asked that I should ask you again. No way. Did you ever see that video?
I did. Very interesting video. Maybe you should ask him again.
Anyway, so let's move away from the jobs that the minister said the agri sector has created. But you also campaigned on job creation.
Yes.
Especially for the youth. Yes. How many jobs have you created?
The president was asked that question, you know, at the encounter with the media, and he explained that we need to be accurate when we're giving those numbers. In areas where those numbers are available, it's easy to put them out. In areas where there's clarity in the number of people who've been engaged, it's easy to put them out. But for the aggregate, like he mentioned, it's difficult to put out those numbers now. He was mentioning maybe, I think by the end of the third quarter, where we can get some estimated numbers and put them out. But yes, you are right. Jobs are a big matter. The president will be talking about jobs again on Thursday, because jobs are a big focus for this government in the year 2018. The year 2017 was spent, like we explained earlier, bringing about that stability that you know, has escaped or eluded us, at least in the last 2-3 years.
So things are stable now?
We have found some stability. We've brought it back, but it's important to keep in my mind. I mean, and I always make that point anytime I debate anybody on the economy. I do recall what was described as unprecedented, about 36 months of single-digit inflation under the tenure of former President Mills, God bless his soul. But you see, when it comes to stability, you have to anchor it. You can't say that I've got it this year, therefore everything is so. You have to anchor it, else it would elude you. That's why, for example, this year we are keeping the fiscal stabilization levy. Even though stability is being restored, we need to anchor it. Now, having achieved this relative stability, we can now find fiscal space, find money to invest in the growth-driving, job-creating initiatives. And that's what we're going to do this year. So, for example, you've heard us talk about the National Builders Corps, which we're expecting somewhere around March to start the exercise of engaging about 100,000 graduates across various fields. I do know that some extensive work has been done on that. The president will give some clear direction on the sectors where people are going to be engaged on. You are also finding that more money is being made available through vehicles like the Exim Bank, etc., to fund A, old industries that were distressed, and B, new industries that we seek to put up under the One District, One Factory initiative. Money is also being made available to stimulate entrepreneurship, so about $10 million equivalent in the National Entrepreneurship Innovation Program. They are going through the process of identifying and recruiting young people who should benefit from that particular package. And you will begin to see some move in that space as well. As we mentioned earlier, if Planting for Food and Jobs targeted 200,000 beneficiary farmers to be engaged. And where I slightly disagree with Koku in his earlier analysis, I come from a farming community. There are people who are subsistence farmers. They will describe themselves as unemployed people because all they do is that they grow something on their farm so they can bring home and consume and sleep. Now, if you have a government program that says that I'm going to take away the barriers and make it easier for you because you have land that is literally growing with weeds. So I'm going to take away the barriers to extension services, to fertilizers, to seeds and best practices, and make it possible for you now to become a commercial farmer. Right. It's easy for you to say, oh, but he was a farmer already, so if you give him more seeds and fertilizer, you haven't created a job. But once that person is moving from this space where he was previously a subsistence farmer to now a space where he can now grow these same crops and now have a buyer. Mind you, the buffer stock company has now been put on a different pedestal where it can now buy and stock a number of these things, particularly for free SHS, etc. You would notice that this person is getting out of the unemployment or the underemployment bracket into full engagement. So if you look at some of these direct initiatives, and then you add that to the indirect job creating initiatives, like the things you do in the general macro environment that make it relatively easier for the private sector to find their feet. Cost of credit is coming down, energy is more available, the strangleholds that were making more difficult for people to go into business, including all the tax difficulties, are being taken out. You have a number of indirect jobs that are also being created in that space. So yes, jobs is a big thing. I may not be able to give you a number this evening as I sit before you. The president himself mentioned maybe around March we can get some aggregates, but there's a lot that is being done directly and indirectly to ensure that this challenge that governments over the period, and mind you, the argument we made in 2006, 2007, when President Kufuor was in power about jobs, was the same argument that was made in the Mills, Mahama era. It's still the same challenge. So the challenge of job creation is still a big one, but a lot is being done to ensure that gradually we're able to roll back that.
Okay, how do you, before I'll come to you in a bit, but every time you speak to government appointees like you, and even if you have an opportunity to question the president, they tell you that we don't have accurate data on employment. How are you ever going to fix that problem? Are you going to strengthen institutions to gather the data on employment so that every month, at the end of the month, we are told how many jobs were created at a particular time?
So the Ghana Statistical Service is what gives us what we call observed data. The challenge is that the Ghana Statistical Service, yes, they have the data, but the data they have is often belated. So currently the latest data that you have, I think, is a little over a couple of years old. Says
I think
unemployment, says unemployment generally is about 11% or so as at then. Youth unemployment about 25% as at then. What you need to do is to get the Ghana Statistical Service to a point where they have the capacity to gather data and make that data available using a lot of technology in the shortest possible time. This year, or getting to the end of last year, in our budget hearings with them, it was one area that we spent a lot of time engaging them and interrogating how they are getting resourcing to invest in their competency or their ability to make that data available. I would admit we are not excited currently with how that question is being answered, but I do know that the engagements have started. We are looking at ways. They have answers that they are working with some of the development partners to make that happen, but we have not been impressed with the speed at which they are running, and the discussions have started on how we can quickly retool them and ensure that they have the kind of technology or whatever that allows people to go on the ground, pick the data, and in real time it hits a database in Accra, and it doesn't have to wait for 3, 4, I mean, so currently all our data is literally, even the best data is literally 3 months late in this country. Then you have the Ghana Living Standards Survey, etc. That is usually about 4 or 5 years, delayed. So the conversation has started. We can only work towards speeding up so that we can get that data as quickly as possible.
Okay. Please hurry up.
I hear you.
Kwaku, over to you.
Well, I mean, I'm just happy that it's pretty obvious to our friends on the other side that governance is not a tea party. I remember when the Honorable E.T. Mensah was employment minister, and this same question came up, and he was very frank and he said, look, he didn't have up-to-date data on it. Our friends on the other side really filibustered, and there was a lot of noise making all over the place. Now here's the President of the Republic himself, who supposedly is committed to job creation, and he doesn't even have his stamp on the unemployment numbers. So how does that reflect on his choice and his direction and his vision for job creation? Because if you don't have the figures, how many jobs are you going to? That is why we have so many figures, flying in the air, this, that, because if the president himself does not have his stamp on the unemployment figures, today, where is the Unemployed Graduate Association?
They're still around.
They're still around. We don't hear much of them. We would want to hear more of them. Are they really?
Maybe some of them have been swallowed by the planting for food and jobs.
So they should be out there praising the government and saying, we thank God for sending us.
But the government is supposed to do that. They're busy working. They can't make time to come and sing praises.
They're busy working. So the issue of data. I was at a forum about Imani.
Yes,
had recently, about maybe less than 2 weeks ago, and Professor Joe Abbey, or Dr. Joe Abbey.
Dr. Joe Abbey
was there, and his point that he made succinctly so is this issue to do with data. That as a nation, we need to work on the RTI. Once we get that sorted out, then you and I can now freely go and access data. Otherwise, we're going to be banding and pussyfooting and tiptoeing on the issues and always hide behind the fact that there's no accurate data. There's no accurate data. Just go ahead, let that RTI become law, which is the right information, whatever it is, and let us have it so we can walk in there and get data. No. Otherwise, it's true.
No. You are assuming that the data exists and that once you get the RTI, you can get the data.
So
the real challenge is creating, and I mean, I'm excited you've even mentioned RTI, because despite our commitment and our public pronouncements, we haven't passed it yet.
Absolutely.
But the reason for which we haven't passed it yet is because as part of our work in reviewing and making recommendations, we have made recommendations that it is important to build the infrastructure that delivers that information. Else, RTI is a piece of paper. You can take it to Parliament tomorrow. All those in favor say, aye, it's passed. But when you go to that institution looking for the information, you won't get the information.
If we go and we don't find, then we really know that the thing is not there.
Yeah, but
at this point where...
do you think the data is there?
The data is not available. The first level of challenge, for example, when it comes to jobs data, I'm sorry to interrupt you, when it comes to jobs data, the first level of challenge is that the data or the systems for delivering that data must be put in place. Until you have that system in place, even if we pass RTI tomorrow and you went and you said, give me the data, because once that system is available, Ghana Statistical Service, when it publishes its results, they publish it on their website, even minus RTI. So the real challenge when it comes to jobs data is not RTI, but it is about getting a system that mops up the data.
I agree, but we must start from somewhere. Once there's some free access to government information, that will be the beginning of the engagement. Then we know that we are engaging on a certain level that will allow us to move on. But then back to the issue of the jobs, and for me, the GDP figures and the macroeconomic figures and the big things, it's okay for the people who are in the IMF and the World Bank. But it is the everyday person on the ground who really doesn't care about GDP and all those things. Oh, do they?
Or we assume they don't care.
Yeah, look, they were promised that their petrol prices will go down. Has it? I think just as of today, we've had a surge.
Yes, people are actually planning to hit the streets.
Exactly. Now you wake up, you don't even know when it will go up. It's just going up. At the point in time, they told us that electricity tariffs were higher than rent and that they were going to reduce it. Now the president is playing chaskele with the electricity tariffs.
How is he playing
chaskele? Oh, hairdressers will get 14, tailors will get 15. Well, what kind of, dancing castle kind of...
How's that chaskele?
It's chaskele. It's try and error. You throw the TV, enters the tie, it doesn't, they bat you away. No. Because Nanaba, how can you now tell us that we are separating hairdressers from tailors and from barbers?
And barbers, yeah.
It's just like the Greek minister telling you that dam can be running water through your underpipe. It's also a dam. I mean, they should they should get serious and tell us some more concrete stories than what they are telling us. So it is that average driver who now goes to the pump tomorrow morning has to pay more. Yet electricity is going up. Even in spite of the free education that has come, parents are still bearing a chunk of the cost.
Which one? For those in the first year? I am yet to run into any parent who is bearing a chunk of the cost.
Hold on. Parents still buy trunk, don't they buy trunks and chop boxes and other things?
Well, that should be free.
What is the percentage of what the government is absorbing? The government is absorbing what? Boarding fees and then dining hall fees. That is it. But otherwise, parents are still bearing some cost. So it is not free roller coaster ride.
No, but you were expecting it to be absolutely free. So free.
That is the question. That's the question
free
we
night
ask.
Gown.
Yes, that's what they said. They said everything will be free. In fact, the president, when he went to Kwapiman Secondary School, just after he got sworn in, he went there for the anniversary.
He said they won't pay for books. He mentioned a number of things.
Those things that they listed
were not part of it.
Those things that were listed, even the textbooks, assuming that even chop box and trunks were not part of it.
Right.
And it's just even the textbooks.
No, but the textbooks are provided.
Sorry, could you go and check? Well, we are running the numbers.
Please do.
The supply is abysmal. Parents are still bearing the cost of textbooks in certain areas.
Really?
As I speak to you now, at the beginning of this term, I won't mention schools because you're not too sure what will happen to the head of the school. Parents are clandestinely, paying. Now, I had a deputy minister of education, the one who came from the US. I forgot his name, forgive me. That's the only way I can remember him. He happened to be living in the US for so many years, and I had him during the Christmas period, and I cringed because the question was put to him that, look, you said there should be no PTA dues, yet you say you are going to set up a voluntary fund. How do you marry these two issues? Right. And he says, look, as for the fund, it is there. Anybody who feels like pumping money into the fund, go ahead and pump money into the fund. But PTA is compulsory, and that is what they are preventing. For goodness sake, why? PTA is quasi-voluntary. PTA dues, quasi-voluntary. So if you're taking away the quasi-voluntary one, which is more obligatory, quasi-voluntary but more compelling, and you go and open this open-ended one which has no limits, loose-ended one that who's going to pay for?
So you think there's some policy incoherence there?
Exactly.
Let me just clear that confusion. You see, first of all, for example, day students were going to get charged about 743 Ghana cedis in this academic year. Right. Boarders were going to pay about 1,100 Ghana cedis. So, of course, that's exclusive of your chop box and trunk.
Thank you. That now you're giving us that.
I mean, everybody knew that. Everybody knew that. Right from day one. Everybody knew that government was not going to buy chop box and trunk.
Headmasters will tell you that parents actually walk up to them.
Indeed.
Wanting chop box, wanting trunk, wanting everything. It's true. Because they say the thing is free.
Indeed. On the lighter side, all of those who went to campaign rallies trying to demonstrate free SHS were carrying their chop boxes. Because the joke out there was that all you need is to pack up and go to school.
The more reason why the people seeing the trunks and the chop boxes believed that government was going to provide everybody trunks and chop boxes.
Because everybody knew that chop boxes and trunks were not part of free SHS. But listen, the challenge was that PTA dues, if you do not take care, you will find schools circumventing what government is paying and on their own charging people through PTA dues, which end up undermining the free nature of the education we're trying to provide. And so what government said was that if you want to charge PTA dues, it must be cleared from the Ghana Education Service Council. It's not that PTA dues are totally unacceptable. That has been the policy from the... In fact, I went around the country...
This is news to me.
No, it's not. I went around the country doing town hall meetings where we explained it over and over again, that you can only charge what has been approved. You cannot voluntarily on your own...
He never heard it.
Well... You cannot, you cannot on your own without
so it means that you have PTA dues.
Because you see the
so like Tajigbe SHS or Anyako SHS, the headmaster or the headmistress can go and get clearance and then charge PTA dues.
That has always been the rule, that when it comes to PTA dues, you write to the council and you get permission for it. Wow. It is when you don't write to the council and you illegal. Ordinarily sit there and start charging. That's where there's a problem. Now, quickly, the thing on the voluntary fund. Yes. Let me take my former employers, Multimedia Ghana Limited, spending a lot of money on education, providing scholarships, etc. As an organization, they were committed or still are committed to supporting education. When government says that it is paying the fees for free, does that mean that their commitment to education has ended? No. So you create a voluntary fund. You have institutions like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, several, that are committed to education. If we are using our resources to educate our children, nothing stops us from creating a voluntary fund that says that for those of you who have the same priority, you can also supplement government's income.
Are people
the president will speak on Thursday.
In fact, when I had the
they call it a Susu fund.
It's not Susu, it's Ibima. Ibima fund. When I heard the Deputy Minister for Education, he said that some radio presenter in the UK had called him and said that she wanted to donate into the fund, and that was his only reference point for. And when the reference point for saying, for talking about the existence of the fund, it's ridiculous. You see, this multimedia, why? They have just sent this young man to Ashesi University.
Yeah.
Through one of these human interest stories. Brilliant. But then multimedia knows that, look, we have sent this boy to Ashesi University, blah, blah, blah. Or it didn't send him to Ashesi. No, it is your story that created the awareness for Ashesi to give the boy a scholarship.
Right.
But you did your job. The other ones that you've done where you yourself go fund. But then that's a specific and targeted kind of, what do you call it, social responsibility. That's okay, you derive more joy from it than going to throw something into this nebulous fund. and you don't even know where the thing is going. And the argument we are putting up is that if parents or guardians can voluntarily pay PTA dues, doesn't it make more practical sense for them to do so than to tie their hands behind their back and say faceless people should come and put money in some fund?
Once the GS Council approves that dues,
well, then let it come out. Let it come out.
It has always been communicated.
Okay, let's take a break and come back to talk about lawlessness.
Lawlessness and the field.
Yes, there's a ministry for that.
Artistic children dreams come true during Verna Mineral Water rebranding launch.
Most of the times people ignore such kids and they tag them as evil kids or they are cursed and all that, but that's not true.
Putting a smile on every child's face, regardless of their condition, is a major responsibility of our society, and I am pleased to be a part of this today.
In this life, the best thing you can do is to make someone else happy, or basically make people around you happy.
Drinking and buying Verna mineral water, you help many people out there, like our beautiful sisters over here, and all the many people that Verna mineral water helps.
Here we go. Purchase a bottle of the all-new, sleek and stylish Verna natural mineral water today and support a worthy cause. Verna mineral water, changing people's lives.
Rush hour traffic, or a great spot to enjoy the view, a hot day, or a chance to get closer, the regular motions of work, or a moment for ingenuity and unexpected creativity. Because when you look, there's joy to be found anywhere, and joy will find you. Fan Milk.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ochiame Kwame. My wife and I would love to invite you to a romantic dinner musical at the plush Alisa Hotel. And on that night, there will be love-themed buffet, live performances from seasoned musicians, surprises, it takes two, and an interactive moment with the marriage counselor, man. The date is 16 February. Time is 8 p.m. sharp. Venue Alisa Hotel. Telephone number for reservation 0550-823-603. Buy your VIP couple for 500 Ghana. Classic couple for 400 Ghana. Single and searching for only 250 Ghana. Show the world that love is alive. Alisa Hotel, 8 p.m.
This event is powered by GH1 TV.
Welcome back to State of Affairs.
Well, but you see the beauty.
Wow, I can't even introduce myself.
No. Let us help you. Let us help you.
Okay.
The beauty of this your program is that as we were speaking, somebody has just sent me something from the Nurses Training College in Damango. And this is it. Book no lie. Damango Nurses Training College.
It could be doctored, no?
Well, whatever, but we could still check.
Okay.
And he has just paid. He has had to pay fees. For 2 words there.
Nursing
training. Fine. But even the allowance that you said you were going to introduce, it came only 2 months, it's not going again. So the nurses are crying all over the place. The training is not going. Anyway, so now I can afford to allow you to introduce your last segment.
Welcome back. Since he rudely cut him.
I'm sorry, forgive me.
The show is brought to you by Verna Natural Mineral Water. Let's talk about lawlessness now. Akoja, I'll start with you. I mean, last year when we listened to the president and he condemned the Delta forces and the Invincible forces, 3 weeks after that, the boys were out running riot and locking up officers here and there. And it has happened every month after that. In fact, just last week, it happened in the Upper West region. well, the minister has been suspended. Let's listen to the president, exactly what he said last year about lawlessness.
Wrongdoing has no political color, and I do not subscribe to the lawlessness of political party supporters simply because their party has been elected into office. Mr. Speaker, when those incidents began, I instructed the then Inspector General of Police, John Kudalo, to apply the law, irrespective of political affiliation, to all lawbreakers. This instruction was also carried on to his successor, David Asante Apitu. Both of them acted upon it, which helped to bring the situation under control. It appears these events were predicated on some concept of...
Okay. Kojo, so the lawlessness hasn't stopped?
No, I mean, I think the incidents of young men, massing up and misbehaving or sometimes engaging in criminality is something that we have not achieved 100% success in getting a tab on. But it's not for want of trying. There's this belief in the system, and it's not new, that when your party is in power, you can literally take the law into your hands. I do recall how Kokudems had a challenge with it initially. It's repeated its ugly head. We have tried, given instructions that it should be acted on. In some instances, you see some effort. But there's also been this institutional fear, even within the security brass, that when you touch these boys, the politicians will come for you. And part of what we have had to do over the period is to try and convince the security enterprise that we're in a different enterprise. You are not going to be victimized for dealing even with our own party people. And you'll find that as high as the minister, who is believed or reported to have interfered in the law enforcement process, the president has asked immediately, within about 24 hours, that he should be suspended. I think that should send a very clear signal to the security brass that the president is not joking when he says that deal with anybody who breaches the law, even if that person claims to be a member of my political party. So we can only keep encouraging the security agencies to do a bit more in that space, and most importantly, resource them so to do. Just today, the Ministry of Information announced that as part of our renegotiation of that security car enterprise, we've been able to get about 100 Toyota vehicles for the Ghana Police Service. Earlier or getting to the end of last year, we did about 100 pickups for them, because there are many places where you go where the police will tell you that we've heard your instruction, but we cannot even move into these areas that you are talking about. You have places where policemen don't even have handcuffs. You saw the Nchireboase, suspects going to court, literally having to hold their clothes. So part of it is convincing the security brass that your jobs are secure, deal with anybody who breaks the law. The other part is also resourcing the security agencies so to do, and we're working on both to achieve the objective.
Well, I think that for me, the president's words were captured in paragraph 9 and 10 of his speech last year, to be more specific. But the president has not given us enough cause to believe in his integrity when it comes to fighting this kind of lawlessness. And I'm happy the way you preambled your question for Kojo, that there's been a flurry of such, brazen brigandry by these boys. And if you look at the fact that political leadership seems to back and support them, then it tells you that this is state-sponsored, terrorism and hooliganism.
No, I cannot.
And if you marry this with the SDG 16, that looks at peace, security, and the building of institutions, because that is where we are going to, SDG 16, then obviously now Akufo-Addo has failed miserably on that score. What he has done in WA is what you call in the local balance pentimamito.
How?
It's pentimamito. The fridge has, the motor is not working. Nothing is working. Then they put small whitewash. You go and buy that you bought a fridge. You go and give it to your girlfriend. Tomorrow your relationship is over because you have received there. What I'm trying to say is that look, he suspended the minister, but the hooligans are still on the loose. The thing has to do with the hooligans, not the minister. So you suspended the minister. Is the minister going to catch the boys? Go after the boys. That's what we're talking about. So that is why the president has lost it.
But if the minister is reported to have called the police to release the boys.
So where are the boys? So tomorrow they will go and cause the dismissal of another minister? Because they have seen it happen brazenly, and their colleagues have... look at this one about Kumasi. That's the one that really hurts me. Apart from the fact that they beat the police officer in Flagstaff House, the seat of government, which has never happened before. For me, what happened in Kumasi, that
the security
guy, and what they did to the lady judge. And when the guys, you know, pull their friends out, they go back to court. Before they are going to court, they are on air granting interview and saying that when we go, we'll be fined. This amount of fine because some guy in Accra, some MPP and MP has told us that this is what happened. And then, to make matters worse, the AG goes to file a case of nolle prosequi. It doesn't help. Let us build the institutions. And for me, when you cascade into the issue of also sanitation, which is the SDG 6, we have failed woefully. Sanitation and water. Then SDG 4, which has to do with health and good living. And to think that we have a ministry for sanitation. I recall under President Kufuor when he had the ministry for the beautification of Accra, the capital. May the soul of Jake rest in peace. Our problems got worse in Accra. I don't know whether it's history just repeating itself in a very nasty way. So there's a minister for sanitation. But today, Ghana is ranked number 2 after war-torn Sudan when it comes to open defecation in Africa. Open defecation. And I don't think it's cutting a good image for us as a nation. It's not about MPP any longer. It's not about NDC any longer. It's about the Republic of Ghana. Number 2 behind war-torn Sudan. In terms of open defecation, please let the president be up and doing. So this year, he's lost 1 year. He's lost another month again in the second year. He's lost almost 6 days in the second month of the second year. Time is running out for him. Yes, let him be in a hurry, but let him do the right things.
You said he should
let him do. I always said that he should be in a hurry, but cautiously. As for the open defecation, that one I will agree. That he should be in a hurry.
Very quickly. So, you see, it's not as though the sanitation situation in this country was perfect and have
nobody has said so, Kojo.
If I may.
But we are looking at
and has deteriorated over the last 1 year. It is indeed because we recognize the kind of difficulty that we have. That's why we've assigned a particular minister and deputies to deal with it. And their job is about threefold: to ensure that they put in place mechanisms that help all of us get some very regular education on the right things to do when it comes to the area of sanitation. And recently they launched their entire campaign to roll out. Second, to begin a process of enforcing the sanitation regulations and bylaws, assisting the assemblies to do a lot more enforcement of those ones. Is good. And they have come up with their own enforcement mechanism that they are beginning to roll out. Their job also includes, among other things, coordinating the work of the various district assemblies, because sanitation actually rests with the various municipal, metropolitan and district assemblies. But some more coordination, because the local government ministry itself does a lot more administration, but some more coordination in how the real solutions are brought about. And I'm hopeful that in this year, 2018, after the ministry has laid its foundation, you will now begin to see a lot more impact of their work. I'm very sure the president will deal with it on Thursday morning when he speaks to all of us on where we are on his sanitation agenda and the kind of results that we are going to see this year. But very quickly, going back to the matter of security, I am excited to see, and I don't think it's Pintimaminto, I'm excited to see that the gap in the middle, which was this fear among particularly the security brass, that when you touch party people, you will be dealt with, is being attended to the extent that somebody who was, merely
So you think the suspension sends a clear signal?
This is somebody who was merely reported, and the person says, I'm going to investigate while I'm asking that these persons be found. I'm going to investigate, and I don't even want you to be there.
So how long is it going to take to investigate?
Well, it's ongoing. We should be able to hear something in the shortest possible time. But for me, it is encouraging that it's not as though everybody's folded their arms and saying, let it go on. But some work is going on in that space.
All right, I have to end it here.
Yes, but Nanaba, quickly, on the issue of education, I think that we will have to have a follow-up on this. I'll find time for it. Because there's a lot of text messages coming from schools and heads and the things that they are saying, Kojo, you got a lot of work to do, man.
Bring it when it's time. Bring it when it's time.
Thank you so much. Kokwa Nyidoho and Kojo Oponkroma. Thanks for your time. Thanks for watching the show. The show was brought to you by Verna. Verna Natural Mineral Water. Have a good night.
State of Affairs is proudly sponsored by Verna Natural Mineral Water. Verna, changing lives.